Hello, friends. This is Ian Khan. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, then hang on tight. I'm about to get started on our Future in 60 Minutes live stream today. I have a very exciting guest today, Mark Koziel, CEO of Allinial Global. He's officially joined from August. And we want to know about the accounting industry. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities, the direction the industry is taking. And you can also submit questions. You can post them in if you're watching on YouTube, post them in YouTube or whatever platform you're watching us on. So without any further ado, let me bring on Mark. Mark, welcome to Future in 60 Minutes.
Thank
This
you,
is this is not going to be the Larry King type of interview, but honestly, this is to help us understand your vision, your ideas, more also about industry, what's happening, what does the future look like for industry, and what should a typical accounting firm, a mid-sized or a large or a small accounting firm do to succeed in an environment that has many variables. And let me lay it out. You've got a pandemic that's happening right now. You have competition from, of course, other firms, but the big four who are investing more than, I believe, $2 billion in technology every year. You've got technology as a disruptor as well. It's affecting and impacting industry. And last but not least, the clients. Customer needs are changing, client generations are changing, and the way newer, younger clients want services is changing. So I see these as four different disruptive forces that are impacting industry. And so there's a lot to do, a lot to learn. But before we get into the nitty gritty and those details, welcome to Allinial Global. Tell us how it's going over at Allinial, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Great. Thanks, Ian. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. I appreciate you hosting me. I started with Allinial 1st of August, as you know, after 14 years with the American Institute of CPAs. Prior to that, I worked in public accounting firms in Buffalo, New York, and I've had a couple of conversations today. I said, that gave me the unique opportunity to practice in a recessionary environment my entire career. Back then, Buffalo was definitely seeing its challenges being a Rust Belt city here in the U.S., so it did give me different perspective. And when we're talking about all these changes and the issues and the crises and the like, we're still talking about the same things. What I've learned, though, over all of these years is that the accounting profession is relatively recession-proof. Yeah, there will be a couple of blips inside of what we do right now. But generally speaking, I mean, the firms are busier than ever right now. In March or April, as I was talking to firm CEOs, they were telling me that they were very nervous about cash flow. Those are not the same conversations today. They're saying that right now as they sit, their cash flow is as good, if not better, than it was a year prior because their clients are coming to them because of the unknown. What do we do as a profession? We make sense of a changing and complex world. That's what we do. And that complexity isn't getting any easier, and the change is coming ever so faster. In fact, we're talking to firms about not the need for change, but the need for actual transformation. And they've been able to witness that in the last, 100 plus days inside of what this pandemic has done. But it's made them bigger, stronger, faster. And so as we come out of this in the new world, what that looks like, some hybrid model of virtual and live inside of what we do, whether it's our training or how we interact with clients, it's definitely going to be different. And we're going to be prepared for that. And we're going to be able to help our clients do the same thing, which to me is very exciting. So a lot of opportunities right now. At Allinial Global, things are great. We're, in touch with the firms. I'm meeting with each and every firm, 236 of them. I said, my ultimate goal is by year end. But, we're being aggressive with that. I want to listen. I have to listen to see what the firms are up against, how we're doing as an organization, and make sure we adjust. And I have my own visions of that, being around the profession, being around associations and networks for years. I know what works and what doesn't. So I look forward to that. You're on mute. Sorry.
In all honesty, 1 hour is a very short amount of time to go through everything. And so I want to lay down that expectation for our viewers. We're going to do a little bit of touching on a few important aspects of the accounting profession. And as the live stream says, it's future ready in 60 minutes. What can accounting firms do to be future ready, whether it's you're looking down 1 year, 2 year, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, who knows? But I think we can maybe share some insights about this is what you need to do, and this is the direction you should be heading into. Now, Allinial is the world's second largest accounting association, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
And so it's a huge amount, and you mentioned 236 firms. It's a lot of different stakeholders, thousands and thousands and thousands of employees and people in accounting firms, and literally, I believe, millions of customers that they serve. I mean, as a large accounting association, that's the impact. So we're not looking at a small segment of industry that you work with. You get collective insights from literally millions of entrepreneurs. So first question, what are the customers of your members feeling? Tell us about a few industries that you've heard from. We've seen manufacturing take a different turn. We've seen healthcare doing many different things. What's the general trend of industry when it comes to short-term future thinking and kind of mid-long-term future thinking?
Well, first, Ian, I mean, you were spot on when you mentioned pandemic, competition, technology, clients, right? Those are the four big things affecting firms, but just affecting businesses in general. So when we talk about being future ready, the future's already here. I like to say that 2020 is the new 2025. What should have been hitting us in 2025 is hitting us today, thanks to the pandemic. So technology, how we're interacting with our clients. At the end of the day, though, I don't care what new services we provide as a profession. At the end of the day, the client relationship is still the underlying linchpin to everything that we do. And we absolutely have to get that right. Listening to our clients, listening to our customers is essential. Our customers were calling our firms and phones were ringing off the hook in various markets. I just had a call with our Latin American community just before this one, and I was hearing very similar things. So the industry is affected, no doubt, small business, hotels, restaurants, so service businesses for sure. If you are in a tourist economy, no matter where you are around the world, that was absolutely devastated by that. You mentioned manufacturing. Sort of, in some of the government relief programs here in the U.S., there were definitely companies who felt this level of uncertainty, which was one of the requirements. But then a few months later, all of a sudden they're saying, well, wait a minute, we're actually doing better than we thought. The construction industry is still incredibly strong. The plastics industry, my cousin's a CFO for a plastics manufacturer, and he's like, we can't keep things in stock right now, especially for clear plastic. I mean, it's going through the roof. So manufacturing is tough to say one way or another. Those companies that transform themselves very quickly and were able to adapt are the ones that are succeeding the most. And we'll see the same thing in firms. Those firms that were already doing technology in a different way, things that were moved into the cloud. We've been talking about cloud for 10 plus years. It is no longer should I or shouldn't I, is when will I versus anything else. And when we look at, when you say competition, so those firms that are selling now or merging up into other firms, there's two big reasons. There is technology and not keeping up with it. And then there's the succession planning issue, investing in technology, investing in people, period. A succession issue isn't because we hired the wrong people. It is because we didn't train on the right things with the people that we have. So it is that investment on both sides, and that becomes absolutely critical, and that's what we want to see going forward.
Thank you, Mark. And this all of that really resonates. I think what is apparent from you just can't not talk about the impact of the pandemic, right? Because it has affected everyone across the world, and so that for that very reason, it keeps on coming in every conversation. I really like what you said, that somehow this change has been accelerated. Somehow what we were supposed to do in 2025 or 2030 has been accelerated. And we're finding that organizations and companies are on steroids of digital transformation. Whether it's work from home, which was an idea that many people couldn't comprehend and they wouldn't want it, but no, there's work from home happening right now. There's remote meetings, there's Zoom, there's now Zoom fatigue. There's all of these things that we were just pushing away, I think, not just in accounting, but across many different industries as well. So I think initially what happened as a pandemic, and these are my observations, is that we were overwhelmed with this tremendous amount of change, a new way of working. I mean, you couldn't leave your home in Spain. If you lived in Madrid or in Spain, you couldn't leave home for a month or 2 months. And so dealing with a tremendous amount of change, like you're in a pressure cooker and you don't know what to do, I think that's been very stressful generally for industries, individuals, peoples, parents, everyone. But then now, 90 days forward, 3.5 months, I think we're getting more comfortable with it, that we somehow trust the fact that we're going to come out of it, which is the hope, the positivity based on evidence and facts, which I really like. And I think we have to look forward. To be future ready, you've got to have an expectation of succeeding, an expectation of winning, an expectation of overcoming your challenges. And so for me, the first thing for anyone to be future ready is think about a positive outcome and then figure out, how do you get it done? How do you do it? Accounting, you mentioned, went through this phase of a bit of being quiet in the beginning and observing everything, but now accountants are more busier than anything. I guess we can talk about the other challenges. For example, you mentioned succession planning as one, but there's still a lot of that technological conversation, but there's also the conversation of what is the future for the accounting profession in general? And I know this is the big question out there, because blockchain and AI, yes, they're doing a few things to how different features and functions are executed within accounting, but then you're also looking at a new customer mindset. Let's talk about technology first. What is your take on technology, and what should accounting firms do to adapt to newer technologies? Do you suggest a process? And you spent almost a decade and a half at AICPA. You come with so much knowledge that I want all of it.
Well, thank you. One of the projects we were working on that I was active in as I was leaving AICPA was the dynamic audit solution, where AICPA was working on a new transformative audit methodology that will be built into, they had to pick a technology vendor, and they picked Caseware, which is probably one of the largest global providers of audit technology. And that is being built by the firms for the firms, 36 firms that have signed on to that project to actually help build it and use it. And we have a couple of those firms inside of Allinial Global. So it will be my charge, my responsibility, and the team's responsibility to have those firms and others help transform the rest of Allinial Global. But this also, I think, gives rise to a different way of the association supporting its member firms, and that you can get a core group of firms to help you in technology curation. And then you bring those technologies to the rest of your larger community, because there are some firms that want to be part of the curation process and the research and the development. You could really leverage that. And there are other firms who say, just give me the tool. I just want to, so AI, I know I need it. I don't want to go through and have to evaluate 5 different providers of that. Help me with that. You mentioned blockchain, and it's funny because I don't know if you've ever seen the Gartner hype cycle, right? So any new technologies or transformations that happen, if you looked back, 2-3 years ago, blockchain was at that very top of the hype cycle curve, right? Well, now that is down deep into the trough of disillusionment.
Yes.
2 years ago, we were saying blockchain is going to completely replace the auditor. Now we're saying blockchain will enhance the audit. Blockchain needs to be part of the audit, but it is not going to take over the audit. It is definitely going to change the way that we do things. And I think with a lot of technologies, that's how things arise. And then again, that client relationship being important, how we audit, the virtual audit, the continuous audit. Continuous audit's been a conversation for years. There's no doubt that technology's brought that closer to us as an opportunity today. So again, with the firm's future's bright. Technology, depending on how you do it, I know we at Allinial are going to be very active in that technology discussion because it's absolutely critical. And the more I talk to firms about that, I want all of our Allinial firms to survive and thrive. Their success is our success. And if we can help them along in that technology conversation, that becomes important.
Absolutely. I believe one of the big challenges across industries is hype. And hype is the enemy of true growth, right? And that's what's been happening. It happened with big data 3 or 5 years ago, maybe. Everybody was talking about big data and how big data is everything and how it's going to change everything. Before that, it was cloud, big data. Then we've got blockchain. Now we have AI, and there's all kinds of scenarios out there about entire industries non-existing and accounting just ending in the next few years. There's all kinds of scenarios, and I'm not a friend of hype. I really believe in action, implementing stuff, but as a leader as well, let's say within an accounting firm, as a partner or as a person or people who are managing a firm, to have a little bit of an aggressive stance. Now, this is a very open conversation, Mark, and I'm going to say something which might sound aggressive, but I'm just trying to have an open conversation. Accountants are considered to be very risk averse in the accounting profession, and by all means, excellent. Do you think that accounting industry leaders need to be a little bit more aggressive? Do you think leadership within the accounting world needs to change? And this is not a technology question, but more of a leadership. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so part of the conversations I've already started to have with some of our member firms, the partnership model by itself is somewhat antiquated. The fact that, one partner, one vote doesn't work if you really want to transform your practice. You need someone whose sole job it is to be focused on the firm. That is the firm's CEO. And, there's probably a magic number in there. I say it's about $15 million in revenues and above, that you really see that type of a more of a corporate model, if you will, around what it is that we look like. It is up to the leader to help drive those conversations about new technologies, new lines of service. And the new lines of service are really coming about from the technologies that are there. Client accounting services, as an example, or SOC assurance services, service organization control reports that are done because of technology. All those pieces are huge growth areas that, and I've seen this in my old firms where success has mattered. When we were successful, it's because we dedicated the right resource to do it. Now, keep in mind, if I'm a 5-partner firm and I decide that I'm going to do client accounting differently than I've done, and I want to really commit to it, change the business model, and then hire someone from the outside to come in and run it, and say that they have 3 years or 5 years to build a business. Because if any startup business of any of our clients, they're not expected to be profitable in year one. Yet in firms, when we create a new line of service, we have that expectation. Or we tell a partner, you know what, go build this in your spare time. Anytime I ask that question in a presentation and I ask the question to partners, how many partners in a room have spare time on their hands? I don't get many that talk about that. So I think when we're talking about doing the right things, it is up to leadership to get there. But if I'm a 5-partner firm, equal number of votes, and I propose that we're going to start wealth management in our practice, and for 5 years, we need to carry them, and there are going to be losses at least in the first 3. I'm sitting there as another partner saying, well, wait a minute. I'm doing the math. My cut now goes down for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm working hard for the cut that I get every year. And that's the mentality that we need to get over. Corporations don't do that. They are willing to fund losses. And we need to think about that inside the model.
And I think this also leads to the mindset that's impacting succession planning for firms as well. This is what I think the same thread of thinking is what's impacting firms from a succession planning. I always say that the future partner can be a CIO, or it can be a computer programmer. That's a possibility in the future, because if um, I, as an employee of a future or somebody of a future accounting firm, can use the power of smart contracts to automate many different things. And we have a question about smart contracts here as well. If I can automate and many things, save a ton of money, then hey, why shouldn't I be counted as a partner? Or who's going to count me as a partner, and I will change the way your firm delivers value. What is your comment on that? You think
Well,
it's
it's
a
challenging
possibility?
here in the U.S. at least, and I know in other markets around the world, trying to have a partner, quote unquote, that is not a accounting professional. There are some states here that limit how many partners can be that, but yet, like your example in smart contracts, there are data analysts and big data professionals that are being hired by these firms. If I look at the percentage of new hires inside of firms, the number of non-accounting majors being hired by firms continues to increase. It's to 20% plus, especially in the largest of firms, that we see that. So that is going to continue, and we need to figure that out inside the business model. They want some level of ownership. I've learned back years ago, economic value add versus outright ownership, making everybody inside an organization feel like an owner. Or if we created an ESOP here in the US, that all the employees feel like they have some level of ownership to the firm. I think all of those pieces are fairly important, especially when you talk about Gen Z, who thinks that they need to be an owner the minute they walk in the door, right? They have this entrepreneurial spirit in the Gen Z that we haven't seen in quite some time, in generations. And, the dangling carrot that we talk of years past, that's just not going to work. It hasn't worked for the last 5+ years. So it'll be interesting.
And AICP has done, they're doing a lot of work on, the new business model and figuring out, there's tons of research that comes out. So that's really useful as well to read and to go through and to learn from. You mentioned talent. Talent remains a big challenge for accounting firms. An average small, medium accounting firm that's just going about its business, it's hard to attract new talent and say, hey, come work for us. Now, in the world of technology or other industries, we're seeing the change in the mindset of management and creating a culture that works with the expectations of the new generation, right? I think that those values need to meet. Find people who resonate with your values, and to candidates that find organizations that resonate with your values. So I think we both have to meet somewhere in the middle. The question is, the big four are tapping candidates from high school. I mean, some of them have programs about financial literacy right from high school. They tap into them from a very early age. What can an average firm do to change its coloring, its incentives for employees to say, hey, this is a great place to work, and here's a career, here's a future. Also keeping in mind that the new generation of accountants and workers probably don't want to spend 140 hours working like the founders of many firms have done. So there's that huge change and balance that I want to ask you about. How do you see the firm of the future changing its culture so that they can attract the right talent and retain the right talent?
It's funny that when I talk to firms, they'll start to talk about the little things, and putting a ping pong table in, like that's going to change the culture of what they do. But it's still back to basics kind of. And I can think back 25 years ago when I was doing recruiting in Buffalo. I said, and I've done this in presentations too. So I said, show of hands, how many people in the audience, if it's a national or international, how many people in the audience want to relocate to Buffalo, New York? And I get very few. And I say, well, yeah, so if I'm going to hire someone in Buffalo, they have to be from Buffalo. And I have to understand that. So your high school program, that's so simple. If I'm a local firm, one office firm in a local market, I've hired high school graduates from the local market, getting them back into their high schools, learning a little bit about presentation skills and development as they're doing that, and letting them understand that that's a part of it. Getting internship program. I mean, that's just fairly simplistic to happen. There's a better chance that they'll come work for us if they see the environment firsthand by us paying them to be an intern and making it happen. I'm starting to see more executive leadership programs out of the larger firms doing in conjunction with local colleges and universities to make that happen. I think that's really smart too. So there are a lot of opportunities. But then at the end of the day, what happens is the firms talk a great game. These are all the things we want. And then they go out and they hire, and they bring that person in, and to your point about, the 140 hours that the individual has to work. They say they want leaders, they want entrepreneurs, they want you thinking entrepreneurial. And then we bring them in on day one and we say, put your head down and fill in boxes for the 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for the next 8 months. And those who aren't successful in filling in the boxes are removed. And yet they're the ones who have the skill, or they remove themselves, right? And they're the ones who have the future thinking skill set. And then firms look around and they say, well, wait a minute, that's all we have in this firm are technicians. They're not our leaders of the future. Well, that's what our model created. So trying to change that model up and thinking about different things, it's not about the billable hour anymore. It really isn't. And getting away from that, I think, will be important.
Yeah, excellent comments. We also have questions and comments that people have posted, and I'll just put one up. Hi, Mark. Where do you see blockchain technology impact on accounting and smart contracts? We touched very briefly on blockchain and smart contracts. Help us let's talk about technology for the next couple of minutes. Help us understand your vision and your understanding of which technologies will create the most significant impact on accounting in a good way or a bad way. What's your outlook over the next 5 to 10 years?
So I do think that blockchain will get incorporated into the audit environment, but then the blockchain itself will also have to be audited in some level of a SOC assurance. How do we rely upon the blockchain for what we do? So if there is a blockchain on smart contracts, as an example, and I'm saying I don't have to look at as many contracts because the blockchain is providing some level of verification, well, I have to rely on that verification in order for me to reduce what I'm going to do on contracts. I think the supply chain is going to be massive around blockchain, right? And how blockchain is being managed by different organizations. The largest of companies will mandate that their suppliers be on their own blockchain, so that when something goes wrong with that avocado in Spring, Texas, in Walmart's able to trace that back to the exact provider of that avocado in the matter of seconds, not in a matter of days or weeks. RPA, blockchain, big data is still there. And I think our clients will be asking us for more insight into their own data. And that's going to be the value add around the audit. And then all of those pieces around what we could do with technology. I could give you horror stories of inventory observations up in Buffalo, counting, pallets in a dirt yard in January when it's about 5 degrees outside, being jacked up into a hoist to be able to count all those things. As little as a droid can do, there are all kinds of technologies around us that are changing the game completely.
Absolutely. I always say that, and I have some involvement in blockchain. I directed a documentary called Blockchain City last year, and it's out, and really went out and collected insights from people who were actually doing things in blockchain to ask them, what is the future of this? So it's out there for everybody to see. I always say this to accounting industry leaders and individuals I meet, that one of the biggest opportunities for accounting firms is to be the guardians of smart contracts, because you're the ones who will probably tell your tech people on what to design, how to design the smart contracts, what conditions to put in there. And so that's a great opportunity for accounting firms to jump on and start creating the framework that gives rise to that. Is start working on smart contracts, start building them, start learning them, and add that to your knowledge base, because there's nobody else who's more qualified to do that than accounting firms and accountants. So that's one opportunity that I can think of.
Yep. And I like that thinking, and I like that discussion, because, the other thing to think about with smart contracts is going to be the volume and the cost benefit to be able to do it. And I think this is where firms are going to help be the advisor to companies. Well, do I need to set up a blockchain for my smart contracts, or through AI and RPA, can I replicate what a blockchain is going to give me just based on setting criteria in that a bot can actually review the contracts or set up the contracts in a different way, that I have these repetitive procedures that can be automated. And then maybe I don't need a blockchain, but there's still some level of verification. So there's a variety of all these technologies and how they operate. I think similar to the US question right now that firms were getting, do I do an idle loan or a PPP loan, or the Main Street lending, or the tax deferral? What do I do? They go to their advisor. The firm will be the advisor on the technology to say which way should I go on the technology.
Absolutely. We've got some more blockchain questions. Not that we want this to be a blockchain discussion, but they're just interesting questions. What type of future of blockchain in KYC trading, supply chain, healthcare, and agriculture? I would say multiple industries are being impacted by blockchain, right from financial industry itself. So I see a huge impact. Mark, do you want to add something to that? Different industries that are seeing some impact that you know of?
I will start by saying, first and foremost, I am not a blockchain expert in any way, shape, or form. But, these are based on conversations with some of the blockchain experts and some of the firms around that. And I think, so this whole supply chain inside of healthcare and agriculture, those are two easy targets for blockchain implementation. And I continue to see things evolving around that. It's going to take a big company to really push that forward. I mentioned Walmart and the avocado, right? So Walmart's going to ask all of its suppliers to be on that. And when we think about that as a profession, so your average local firm isn't auditing Walmart, but they're probably auditing a number of the supply chain companies, those that supply Walmart with their materials. So it's not like we have to understand blockchain because we're going to implement it for our company to do it. Our company is going to be impacted by their customers, and so we have to be responsive to that. And it's much similar to the sustainability conversation, or the financial reporting, or the reporting, corporate reporting and corporate responsibility that happens in the future. I know of a company, an ice cream manufacturer. They were manufacturing for a supermarket chain, and the supermarket chain said, we are reducing our water waste by 20%. So you, manufacturer, have to prove to us you've reduced your water waste on the products you are delivering for us, because we're going to develop a sustainability report. Sustainability, blockchain, all these different things. It is coming from the customers of our client, and we need to be listening to that.
Exactly. Talking about the accounting field and what firms do, I think some of the things that I also want to maybe highlight is that as technology is evolving, and as especially blockchain, I don't want this to be a blockchain discussion, but I just can't help it. It is going to impact the assurance side of business. It's going to impact tax. It's going to impact audit. So there's impact on many different things that firms do. So it just makes sense to start reading up that book that you've been wanting to read on blockchain, whether it's Blockchain 101 or Basics of Blockchain. I really recommend starting to read things on blockchain, even if 95% of it doesn't make sense because it's too technical, but at least that 5%. And I know of firms that are progressive and that are working with clients who are investing in cryptocurrencies and these new digital assets, and they've started to put that knowledge base into their firm so that they understand what the markets are doing. And so I think that absolutely needs to be done.
Yep.
What about artificial intelligence? What about AI? What's your comments? What are your comments on this whole revolution of artificial intelligence or machine learning?
Yep, I think it's right along the same lines as blockchain. I think it becomes critically important. You know, what I've found, because you mentioned this about blockchain, and I think AI is right in the same scenario. This is where I was talking before, that I'm seeing this in firms in Allinial Global, that we have some firms that are curating these. They're curating AI, they're curating blockchain, they're curating other RPA. RPA in Latin America, I have a firm down there that's has a number of RPA companies they're working with. I see that in Europe with a couple of our firms there. I see that in the US all day long. And so I think, for us, this is one of the benefits of being in the association, is allowing those firms to prosper in their thinking, and then for them to help with the implementation of the additional firms. And, so now everyone is succeeding around it. To your point on, at a minimum, reading about blockchain, understanding it, every firm should be doing that right now, at least one person assigned to be looking at that, and then getting involved in the conversations in an association type environment like we talk about, that can help provide that. Now, we'll provide the curated tools to the firms that don't want to go through the research, but at that point, as you had mentioned, they need to at least understand it. So they better be reading on it now so it happens. AI is easy in that realm. I mean, that's probably being implemented faster than blockchain today. So I mentioned about contracts as an example, or leases. I could put in, with AI, I could put in a variety of parameters around leases, and then I could have ingest all of the leases that a client has, and then kick out a report of those that aren't within the parameters that we see, and now focus on the exceptions rather than the sampling that we've done in years past. Very easy. AI in accounting transactions, putting that in, and even partly incorporating bots with AI around how the transactions are done. If I have a client accounting services, automating all of those transactional things, so the conversation I'm having with the client is deeper, better, smarter. And that's becoming the advisor and talking about the things that the client cares about, because they don't care, where I put that rent payment or what my prepaid expenses look like. They care about, how am I going to run my business?
Amazing. Thank you. I also want to give a shout out to all the people who are tuned in and have been asking questions. Nihal, Noor, we've got Brad, and tons of other people Matt have been logged in and are asking questions, are commenting. So thank you everybody for being here and being part of this conversation. This is for you, and this is to help you move further and to maybe acquire some new knowledge. I want to add one fact to what you said. Is there's this whole management philosophy about an organization succeeding when it becomes a learning organization. I don't know who has come up with that theory, but if you want to really succeed and do well, you've got to constantly be in a state of learning, and those are learning organizations. I think must have skill for future readiness is to be on the curve for learning. And this is not just about getting your hours for your CPD and just doing the basic minimum. And I'm not saying people do that, but that's general thinking in the world, that if I do the basics for my own designation, I'm happy and I'm good. No, you've got to expand into other areas and get interested and curious in things that are daunting and scary, because that's where I think value creation lies, and that's where how we can learn as an industry, because we're trying to just even talk about the industry. We've got tons and tons of questions as well. Let's see if we can. Well, somebody wants advice on what advice could you give for PhD students on blockchain in the field of finance? Let's just talk about field of finance. What do you see? How do you see the future of finance generally changing in the next 10 years?
It's interesting. because so in your financial environment inside of businesses, they have to be worried about these things too, whether they outsource it to their CPA firm as advisors, or they need to build the capabilities internally. Again, from companies that are manufacturers or financial institutions, finance is going to be impacted by blockchain, by AI, by all of these things as well. So the companies will have to decide, am I going to build that capability internally, or am I going to outsource that capability to others? And so while I talk about firms a lot, the AI CPA created a new international association with CIMA out of the UK, because the management accounting conversation, the finance conversation, is as critical as part of this transformation as it is in CPA firms. So absolutely to be part of that. I am biased in my opinion of, when you talk about finance majors versus accounting majors, I say, finance majors are definitely talented and they have a great avenue of potential success, but accounting majors always have versatility. Yeah. And whether they choose to go the CPA route and down one path, or they go the finance route, they have the multiple options. And I've had students that I've coached along in that same realm and say, yeah, it's an extra 30 hours, but get the accounting degree, get the CPA. These are things that I believe wholeheartedly is the one thing that no one can ever take away from me. You can take away my CEO title, you can take away EVP, you can't take away that CPA as long as I don't do anything illegal anyway.
I love it. I love it. Mark, we don't have too much time with you today, unfortunately. I wish we did, but I know you're busy. You're clearly doing some very important work over at Allinial. I want to talk about two quick topics. One of them is Big Four and their expansion generally, and investments in technology and research. All of them have blockchain labs. All of them are acquiring other companies, and they've got rich, vast amounts of cash that they can fork out and do all of that. How should small and medium-sized firms see this as disruption or competition? What can small, medium-sized firms do to say, hey, no, I know this is what the Big Four is doing, but I know what my game plan is with my customers, and this is how we're going to succeed. What's your advice?
Yeah, there's a variety of things behind that. That's part of it. I mentioned the dynamic audit solution very early on that AICPA is doing with 36 firms. That was part of the conversation 3 years ago when the largest next tier firms were saying, the Big Four are each investing $100 million in audit technology alone. What about us? What options do we have? And that's where, through research, decided that building something collaboratively as a profession would definitely have that effect. And those firms are investing in and basically funding the project to be able to have that access down the road. And I think that collaboration, that's what helped me understand how important that is as I joined Allinial Global, that I could create that type of community so that it's not just one firm that has to create it, but there is a set of firms that could do that curation similar to how the Big Four are doing it. Doesn't mean the Big Four have it perfect, or the next four firms. As we hear in the marketplace, there are some successes and some things that haven't worked. But for all firms, I mean, that's the thing, is that, you're not always going to be successful, but you got to keep trying. Yeah. And finding that right venue, that right avenue to make that happen. We're seeing that more and more in Allinial. I'm talking to more firms who want to be a part of that, and I'm excited about that because that collaboration, that is really one of the main tenets of why you should be in an association or network, is so that you have the opportunity for that collaboration.
Absolutely. Let's talk about in the next few minutes, and we're slowly ending, heading towards the end of our amazing live stream here. I want to talk about changing customer needs, the changing mindset of the customer. The family business that's been operating for generations, but now they have a 25 or 30-year-old new CEO who's taken over, inherited the business, but this person is tech savvy and they just want to look at their device and be productive to their device. They don't want to meet people. Like there's this new generation of the millennials and post-millennial businessmen and women who are very much glued to technology, and they have a different way of working. How do you work with clients like that? What's your guidance on working with the next generation, the new generation? What can firms do?
That is, amazing, because when you think about the fact that we also have employees who are the same way, and you have firm leaders who are saying, well, I don't get it. Like, how can you work that way? Well, to your point, the clients are going to work the same way. So we have to transform to be able to do that. That's one of the things that I think the pandemic helped make better sense for firms. We'll have some assembly of hybrid relationship building, I think, on the back end of this, that there will be some level of virtual and live in what we do, but the clients aren't interested. I mean, I had firms all day. Well, the only way I can show value to my client is if I'm in their office and getting in the way. Really? I mean, is that the only way they're going to see value in what you do? I had a member tell me one time, she was she worked for a governmental unit, and she was CFO. And she was sitting in her office, and the auditors were in town. And so her office sat between the conference room that the auditors were in and where her staff sat. And she literally sitting there all day, never sees anyone going back and forth. And so she goes over to her staff and she says, well, what are you guys doing? They said, well, we got a whole laundry list of things that the auditors need that we're working on. She's like, yeah, but I didn't see them ask. Well, no, they just keep emailing us with their requests. She's like, well, wait a minute. Then why are they sitting in our office? Because they're actually from 2 states over and had to travel to get here. And she went marching into the auditors and said, go home. If you could email the questions to us, you could do it from the comfort of your own office, not in my conference room. Yeah. And so, we kind of put the burden on ourselves, I think, at times to do that. The pandemic and the expectations coming out of that are going to be very different. And that's why I say, that was coming at us at lightning speed, and now pandemic just accelerated it even more. So 2020 is the new 2025, and that is the way that we're going to audit. That's the way we're going to interact with clients. Some level of hybrid down the road.
Absolutely. I always tell firms and non-accounting industries as well that if you really want to tap into your clients, no matter who it is, then start thinking about one executable thing is create an app for your firm that clients can access, and they've got it right there on their fingertips, and they can access information and data, and you can send them info. Like, it's a very basic idea. I mean, apps are not a revolution anymore. They're more of a necessity. But that's one way that you can be in front of your client all the time, communicate with them, interact with them at a different level. I think that's a small step towards more engagement with the next generation.
Absolutely.
Mark, I cannot thank you enough for your time. I know we're at the top of the hour, but thank you so much for spending the last 1 hour with us and people who've been tuned in. I know there's going to be a lot of learning and discussions after this between people who are going to watch this offline and later on in previews and in recorded views as well. But thank you so much, and we wish you an incredible success with Allinial Global, and we hope you continue doing the great work that you're doing. Allinial keeps doing amazing work as well. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate it and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Ian. This has been fun. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Everybody, we're good here, and thanks to Mark for joining us. I hope all of you had a great time and got some things to learn. But this is Ian Khan signing off for now. The Future in 60 Minutes, and I hope it added some value to your life. Thank you so much.